Welcome everybody to Go Local Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder, and it is a big day. It's a 9 on the Giorgi factor. It's spectacularly beautiful, and we get to travel down to Virginia to speak with Jennifer Lawless, the chair of the Political Science Department at the University of Virginia, and today is prediction day. No more messing around. We're about 12 days from the big midterms. We're going to run right through all the biggest races in the country and here in Rhode Island. Professor, thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, I should note right from the outset that predictions are not my strength.
Trying to lower expectations.
It's the political season.
It is the political season. It was kind of like John Fetterman saying, my brain isn't working today, right? Like, I've had a stroke and I really should not be up on this stage. Let's go to that race. In Pennsylvania, it is a Republican seat. Pat Tomey is leaving the United States Senate. He is a Rhode Islander. Went to LaSalle Academy. He has held that seat, I think, for 12 years. He's departing. Fetterman versus Oz. Your prediction?
I think Fetterman is going to win the race, but not because of Fetterman. The demographics in Pennsylvania are trending blue. Josh Shapiro, who is the gubernatorial candidate, is way ahead. And I think over the course of the next 10 days, we'll see Fetterman attach his coattails to Shapiro and get swept in. But the debate performance the other night was certainly not good.
The worst debate you've ever seen?
I don't know if it's the worst debate I've ever seen, but I do think it was a big strategic blunder on the Fetterman campaign's part. They clearly should have seen that he was not ready to debate in that kind of format. And now there are questions being raised about whether he has the cognitive capacity to be a senator, when it's unclear to me that there's any reason to doubt that. But what we did see was that he cannot answer at this point questions in 15 seconds or in that format.
So you're saying coattails in Pennsylvania. When we get down to Georgia, you can't talk coattails. Or you can't shift to ticket splitting. Let's stay in Pennsylvania. I'm going to go Oz. I think Oz blew the abortion question 100%. But Fetterman, it was disturbing. I mean, it was agonizing watching the poor man who clearly has had a major health issue. Before the stroke was as dynamic and as commanding and as chatty and clever as there is, but this is not the same man at this point, and hopefully he does, but I'm not sure about this one. I think Oz pulls it out. It was clearly before this debate, Fetterman was going to win this by 2 to 4 points, but I think if you were in the undecided and you've been wrestling back and forth, you've got to be concerned about that performance. Let's jump over to Georgia. Warnock versus Walker. Warnock is the incumbent preacher. If you think about it, versus Herschel Walker, the University of Georgia football star, Heisman Trophy winner, former NFL star. It is perfect Georgia dichotomy. You have a preacher versus football, right? Isn't that all there is down in the South? Who wins this race?
I think Warnock wins it, but Walker is going to get 48 or 49% of the vote when he should really get about 3% of the vote. So this is another race where we see, I think, the power of what the state's demographics look like and the fact that it really is not, we cannot consider that a blue state. It's as purple as you can get. And Walker is a fundamentally flawed candidate, but it's going to be very, very close. And it's really close given that Warnock is an exceptional candidate.
Yeah, I mean, do you think the Democrats came on too strong with these two women at the end, late, kind of, I think for people, if there's anyone undecided, I'm not sure that there is, but for anyone undecided, it feels a little late in the game to be pulling this out. The second woman isn't disclosing her name. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that when you've got a race that's this close, when you get any new information, you have to share it and you have to push it forward. And for us, I mean, we've been watching these races for 2 years. The average voter hasn't. They've been tuning in for about a month. And so I'm not sure that it seems like it's too late. This is still a long time in politics. A lot can happen. Think about the Access Hollywood tapes and Donald Trump. Everybody thought that was going to be the end of him, but the election wasn't that day. It was a week and a half later, and it wasn't the end of him. So, I think that it's fine on the Democrats' part to do and for Warnock to, basically consider the hypocrisy involved on Walker's part. But this is a race where Democrats have to really think, oh my gosh, things are just not going well for us. We've got a great candidate, they've got a terrible candidate, and it's really a statistical tie.
Yeah, I think it's Warnock too, but I think it's going to be razor thin, and it's going to be one of those races where Republicans are going to say that it was stolen and all the rest of it. But I think Warnock pulls it off. He is a superior candidate. I mean, it's not really close. From that
One
standpoint.
other thing to keep in mind about stolen election allegations is it's almost impossible to consider Brian Kemp not the winner. So the Republicans will win the governor's mansion, and that's going to open a whole bunch of questions as to, well, how could they possibly win for governor and then not also win the Senate race? It was the same electorate. It's the same, it's the same statewide position. So allegations of fraud will certainly be alleged.
Let's go to Nevada. Laxalt versus the incumbent Cortez Misto. Laxalt's the grandson of kind of an institution, Paul Laxalt, who dominated Nevada politics for 40 years. Who wins that race?
This is one where, a month ago, I wasn't even thinking about it as competitive, and now it's one of the two probably biggest toss-ups. I think that Catherine Cortez Masto can pull it off, largely because of the Harry Reid organization that's still in place. But this is going to be a test for that Harry Reid machine. It's the first time that the machine is going to be operating without Harry Reid, and he was always able to deliver Democratic victories in Nevada, largely because of his presence there. We'll see what happens. But I think that as the incumbent, she probably does eke out a win. But again, a win that should be way too close for the Democrats' comfort.
I'm going Laxalt. I think the Laxalt name's going to pull it out, and I do think that Harry Reid organization is showing signs of fraying. Add in that Latino voters are not as locked in as they used to be for Democrats over the past 10 years. Let's jump over to Arizona, stay in the same region. It's Masters versus Kelly. Kelly's the incumbent Democrat. What's your prediction there?
Shockingly, I think Kelly's going to win. But this is not just, sort of like looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. Even if the Democrats
You mean blue-colored glasses?
Races, they're still in trouble. I think that Kelly's going to win for two reasons. The first is he's an excellent, excellent candidate. He was on the ballot just 2 years ago, and voters are very familiar with him. He has also demonstrated that he's able to deliver for Arizona without being an obstructionist like Kyrsten Sinema is. So I think he sort of comes across as the more level-headed senator that they might want to keep. The other thing is Donald Trump is going to be going all in for his opponent. And in Arizona, that didn't bode that well for Donald Trump in 2020. I think there could be some backlash in 2022. I'm
with you on Kelly. I think Kelly pulls that out. He is the better candidate. Masters can look very, very disturbing, I think, at certain times as a candidate. He looks a little frayed. Let's go to Wisconsin. Johnson, who has been as anti-democratic, pro-January 6th protest, attempt to overthrow the government, versus Barnes, who's the lieutenant governor. A few weeks ago, that looked like Barnes was going to steal that race away from Johnson. Your thoughts now?
There was a poll just yesterday that had Mandela Barnes up by, I think, 1 point, but I think Johnson holds this seat.
Yeah, I think Johnson wins. But you're talking about purple states. Wisconsin with Georgia might be the two most purple states in the country. Go to Ohio. Ryan and Vance. There's an open seat. Portman, I think, is leaving the Senate over here. Ryan's member of the House challenged Speaker Pelosi as a candidate for Speaker. Vance is being backed by big tech funder Peter Thiel. What's your thoughts in this race?
I think that Ryan should win and that Vance will win. And it's unfortunate because Ryan is sort of the quintessential Ohio candidate. If you look at what Ohio voters want, if you look at their priorities and you match it up to his record and what he's done during his congressional career, he should be exactly the kind of blue-collar, pull-yourself-up-by-the-bootstraps candidate that they want to send to the Senate. But we're in such polarized times right now, and Ohio has really become more red than purple. I think Vance, as a pretty flawed candidate himself, who's been all over the map on pretty much every issue, winds up winning.
I'm going Ryan. So
I hope you're right.
this is the craziest world we live in. You're picking the Republican Vance, predicting that victory. I'm going Ryan. I think he's the better candidate. I think when you get down to it, people in Ohio are rough and tumble, and they'll like the 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of Ohio State offense. Let's come to Rhode Island. The governor's race, I'm hearing that a new poll, private poll that just came out of the field shows that Dan McKee is up about 8 points with almost no one undecided. What's your thoughts on this race?
I can't imagine a scenario whereby McKee doesn't win. He doesn't have anything, there's nothing he's done as lieutenant governor or as governor that is so unappealing or turns off enough voters that they're either going to stay home or cross party lines if they're Democrats. And I think he's sort of inoculated himself against major criticisms among independents. So I just don't think that, I think he's made an adequate case. I don't think there's a lot of enthusiasm or a lot of excitement around him, but I don't think there's much to dislike either.
Yeah, I think it's Dan McKee's. I'll tell you the one worry area I have, though, for this race. There's no race in the city of Providence, so voter turnout is going to be exceptionally low. That's a big pile of Democratic votes that are going to stay home. Pawtucket, another Democratic stronghold, no real mayor's race, very low turnout. Woonsocket, there's not even another candidate like in Providence. So again, major Democratic strongholds with a lot of votes. Providence has a population of 180, Pawtucket's around 60, Woonsocket's at about 40. So it's about a third of the state with no real competitive races. And so
although you've got South Providence with a competitive congressional race.
Okay, but
and an incentive to make sure that every Latino voter turns out.
Potentially, but I'll also say that I think Alan Fung's going to take away some of those Latino votes. He's very popular in the Latino community. He's a minority. He's not the, quote, silver-spooned magaziner candidate. So I'm not so sure that that's going to be quite as overwhelming as if he was an Anglo. I think people are going to look and say, you know what, maybe it's time we have a minority in the congressional delegation, which we've never had in Rhode Island history. So just staying on the governor's race, I think McKee wins this thing, but it could be closer than many people think it could be. It could be in that 5 zone. One thing about Ashley Kalus, she has run under this framework of she's a fighter. Listen, she's taken big hits and she keeps throwing bombs and she throws punches every single day. There are no flies on her. I've never seen a candidate throw so many punches so consistently. Now, are they sticking? But, you know, at some point the body blows might add up. So we'll see. Dan McKee is my prediction, but closer than maybe what the polls are saying. And then let's go to CD2. Here's a race that on everybody's polling right now, across the board, including magaziners, Alan Fung is leading anywhere from about 4 points up to about 8 points across the board. Your thoughts?
Look, this district is very important to me. This seat is very important to me.
You ran, just for clarity, you ran for this seat as a Democrat.
In 2006. I remember making the case then that we needed to send a real Democrat to Washington, and I would make that case now. I think Magaziner is going to win. I do think that the campaign is clearly getting a little bit freaked out, not only by its internal polling, but also by the fact that they were able to get Jill Biden to come to Rhode Island, right? Like, this should not be where the Democrats are deploying their celebrities. To act as surrogates on behalf of candidates or to endorse candidates in high-profile events. This should be a lock, and they shouldn't have to devote any time to it. But I do think at the end of the day, Magaziner pulls it out.
Yeah, I'm going to go Fung, and I'll tell you why. If you've got to bring Jill, the star, right now, the #1 star for the Democrats is Dr. Jill Biden, the First Lady of the United States of America. She had to come in here for Magaziner. I also think Magaziner's there's a giveaway on the strategy. They are pounding abortion ads. If they don't think that they've got women, people care about reproductive rights issues, motivated to come out 12 days away, and they're still spending against that messaging, there's real issues here. And the flip side is, Fung's not punching hard. Fung's running food ads. I'm over here at Iggy's eating. I'm over here at Twin Oaks. He's letting the RCCC
Because
do the
Alan
nasty
Fung
work.
doesn't want people to know his positions on that issue.
Well,
Right? I mean, if I were Alan Fung, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, don't share your views because they're not in sync with Rhode Island's 2nd Congressional District.
well, he thinks they're in tune with Twin Oaks, Iggy's, friend,
And Kevin McCarthy.
awful. So your magazine are on the predictions. I'm Fung. Let's go to the big board. House. Who wins the House and by what margin?
The Republicans, and I think they'll pick up probably 15 seats.
So a loss of the 7 majority so a 22 seat swing.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm going 30 plus all day long. I think this could be a runaway. I do think the Democrats are overemphasizing abortion as an issue at a time where energy prices are starting to hit much of the country. The economy is the #1 issue, the #2 issue, and the #3 issue
I
in
don't
variations.
think that they're overemphasizing reproductive rights, but I do think they have to demonstrate that they can walk and chew gum and that voters can understand walking and chewing gum. And that seems to be happening, but it's happening late. I think they thought that the economy was going to improve. I don't think they thought interest rates were going to be topping 7% in November. And gas prices are, all over the map, but certainly not good right now. So I do think we're seeing more attention to the economy, but they're hoping, I think, that as many people who voted early were voting, on reproductive freedom.
Okay, so you're a net 22, I'm a net 30, but both cases we're predicting the House of Representatives goes to the Republicans. Let's talk about the United States Senate. Presently, it's a 50-50 tie. Any contested vote that along party lines, the vice president has to come down and vote on this. Plus, you have 2 Democrats who can pretty much and do regularly hold up things, Sinema and the president from West Virginia. Where's this going to be after the midterms?
I think the Democrats are going to hold the Senate, and I think that it's possible that they could wind up with 51 seats. But really, unless they have 52, it doesn't matter. And frankly, even with 52, it doesn't matter if the Republicans take the House.
I'm going Republicans grab it by 1, a net out 1. I think the economy is so overwhelming right now. Whenever it's an economic election, those in power are in big trouble. There are way too many contested races up and down the board. They're all toss-ups.
But based on your predictions don't suggest a Republican takeover.
Well, I've got Oz, so that's a hold. I've got Laxalt, that's a pickup. And everything else stays the same. So.
No, but you have Ryan. That would be a pickup.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So it's a 50-50 that way, too. So we'll see.
We possibly agree.
You said a 51. I'm saying 50.
No, I'm saying I think it'll probably be 50-50, but I think there's a possibility of 51-49.
Yeah, I'm going 50-50 possibility of our 51-49.
Okay.
So any other huge upsets around the country, either in the House or Senate? Is there something that's not on the conventional wisdom board that people should be thinking about?
I don't think that there will be upsets, but I think there are going to be some races that are way closer than anybody expects. So Patty Murray, for example, who's been in the Senate since 1993, is up in Washington, and I just got an email saying that their polls have her only up by 4 points. This should not be a 4-point race. Right. So I do think there are going to be a series of races that incumbents win on both sides of the aisle, but that are going to sort of give pause to the Democrats.
And are there any races that you think has the potential to sort of reshuffle the deck for the presidential race? And let me give you just a hypothetical. DeSantis in Florida, what if his margin wasn't very big? I don't think it's going to be. I think he's going to win significantly against Chris. But what if it came out 52-48?
I don't think it matters because you can win the presidential election now without winning over any Democrats and with winning a pretty, 50% plus one of independents. And if
But
that's
I'm just
the
talking from a
demographic,
momentum standpoint. Does
I don't
anybody?
know. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it matters because, like, the important thing is getting through that Republican primary. And so, if he wins in a close race, it's going to be because Florida's, a pretty split state. I can't imagine that he's not going to get the overwhelming majority of support from Republicans, and that's what matters as you head into a presidential election when you've got a competitive primary.
Okay. Last question. In this final week before, and we'll talk next Thursday, but in this next week, what should we be looking at just 12 days before the midterms?
So something that I'm finding pretty interesting are Republicans endorsing Democrats in purple districts. We've seen Liz Cheney now do this in Michigan. In Virginia, where I am, Denver Riggleman, who was a former member of Congress, a Republican, has been doing tons of campaigning for Abigail Spanberger. Basically, there are these handful of Democrats who are they're trying to hold on to seats that are, that could easily go Republican. And it seems like they're relying on not only on high voter turnout among Democrats, but on some crossover voters, and they're using Republican surrogates to do it. So it'll be interesting to see whether that turns out to be a national push in the final 10 days.
We'll keep an eye out for it. We'll talk next Thursday, just days before the midterm elections. Jennifer Lawless, the chair of the Political Science Department at the University of Virginia. As always, thank you so much for joining us. For everybody else, stay tuned. If you didn't read the big blockbuster story yesterday on Rhode Island DOT Director Peter Alviti and his involvement in the 610 contamination episode that's been ongoing for 2 years, take a look at that. Also, an update on the terrible situation with a major restaurant group down in Newport. The U.S. Department of Labor has gone after them for not only failing to pay wages properly, but also for the managers scooping the tip jar for their own benefit. So that's a nasty ongoing discussion on that situation. Enjoy this great weather. We probably won't have it again until April. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. If you haven't gotten your booster, run, don't walk, go and get it. Thanks, everybody.